On today's Transport Evolved, Norwegian love affairs, a flaming Tesla, Zero leaves the UK, rental demand for EVs, and 0 to 60 in stupidly short amounts of time. Coming up next on Transport Evolved.
Transport Evolved is sponsored by audiblepodcast.com. To claim your free audiobook from a selection of over 85,000 growing titles for your iPod or MP3 player, head to www.audiblepodcast.com/Transport Evolved. And by your kind donations. To make a gift to the show or to set up a monthly subscription, head to www.transportevolved.com. We thank you for your kind support. And proud to support Chronovirus, the latest book by Long Island author Aaron Crocco. To find out more and get a free chapter, head to www.aaroncrocco.com.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to episode number 168 of Transport Evolved, recorded on Sunday, 6th of October 2013. My name is Nikki Gordon-Bloomfield.
And I'm Mark Chatterley. How are you and your massive Nissan Leaf this week, Nikki?
I'm brilliant. I never thought that making a massive Nissan Leaf would be more popular than actually the news of this week.
Yeah. Who would have thought? But it was, and it was good.
For those of you who don't know, TEN, Transport Evolved News, had its second episode this week. And when you're recording a show, it takes us about an hour. It took us about 3 hours the first week to record it. Second week, it took us about an hour to half an hour to an hour to record 10 minutes of video.
Yep.
And so if I make a mistake with the audio cue or whatever, I just muck around a bit, which is kind of normal. And Mark caught some of those and then put them at the end of the video, which I thought was kind of very silly, including the one that had me talking about a giant Nissan Leaf. Anyway, if you haven't seen the show, TEN, then I suggest you go to the website, www.transportevolved.com, and you will see TEN episode 2 on your right-hand side. And in a couple of weeks, we are going to open up a video podcast version of the show. We're just trying to work out who and what we talk to in terms of getting a provider for that. So if you know anyone who wants to help us with that, let us know. Right, Mark, let's go on and introduce our guest for the week. He has been on the show before. He's a bit of a guru when it comes to converting things, bit of an inventor, bit of an all-round tinkerer, I think. Please welcome onto the show, Ben Nelson. How are you, Ben?
Hey, I'm doing good. Very happy to be here today.
Good.
Yeah.
How's life?
Doing pretty good. We just had a birthday party for my 3-year-old little girl. So she was having a lot of fun driving the solar-powered Power Wheels around the backyard with all of her friends. And we made a princess chair for her birthday, which she was also thrilled with. And, of course, a piñata. And things have been pretty good. Getting ready for winter. It starts getting cold soon around here. So
yeah.
In terms of getting cars out of the driveway and where we put what for the winter. And in my area, everybody has a basement. So that's where the workshop is. But my house does not have a basement. So just trying to figure out heat and where I work on projects all winter and everything. That's kind of been taking up my time. I've got a diesel engine hanging in my garage right now. That the plan for that is a diesel electric hybrid pickup truck. But it's still hanging there right now. I haven't had a lot of time to work on that lately, so I'm working on getting the ball rolling again on that hybrid truck project.
Awesome. Now, Ben, remind us, you're in Minnesota, aren't you?
Wisconsin, next door.
Right, okay. Wasn't far off. I'm sure that's probably a really bad insult.
It depends from where you're from. I mean, if you're in Europe, I just say, yeah, I'm from near Chicago, and people understand it. It's kind of close enough.
You say we understand, and we just go, the city in America. That's pretty much my knowledge of America.
You could say you're in London, and I'd be like, oh, okay, I know where that is.
So I'm more interested in what you've got behind you in your studio there, Ben. For those of you who don't know.
Okay. Well, there's a time zone difference between where you are and where I am, and I thought this was going to start about an hour from now. So last time I was on the show, the video wasn't working on my end, but I had lights set up and this great backdrop and everything. And instead, I'm an hour off, so I thought I still had like another 45 minutes to set all that stuff up and hide everything that's in this background.
It looks great.
But what this is this is my home office. So we've got one little extra bedroom at my house. So I edit video in here. I make instructional DVDs in here. So a lot of the equipment back here is it's a duplicator for making DVDs, for printing on DVDs, and then I make all these discs. I do this all myself. So I sell instructional DVDs on how to build your own electric car or your own electric motorcycle, and it's not somebody mass producing it. It's all me here. So sometimes the printer doesn't work great, and it kind of comes out smudged. So I have a pile of smudged DVDs, and those are in one stack. And I do all this stuff myself, but people seem to like it. People seem to like the information that I'm putting out there. I got a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of followers, and it's fun just getting that kind of information out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's why we do Transport Evolved. And, look, this is my secret here. I've got an office just like yours behind the brick wall.
I loved the giant leaf behind you, because for a second there it showed your green screen and it was just all wrinkly and not well lit or anything. And I think you've got amazing chroma key going on where you are with your brick wall.
Yeah, absolutely. Although there's a little wrinkle up here.
I painted my room a nice cheerful color, and if I didn't have all this other stuff in the way, the whole room could just get chroma keyed away. But too much office equipment in the way here.
Enough of the geekery. I'm geeking also about your Mac in the corner, which I think is a G4, 400 megahertz G4. I've got a G3, which we use in the studio every week. But let's talk about the show. If you want to follow the show live and talk to us live, there's a way you can do that. You can use Twitter at Transport Evolve, or use Transport Evolved as a hashtag. You can also follow the show notes, www.tinyurl.com/Transport Evolved 168. And if you want to watch us, and for some reason you're listening to us through Mixler, or you've just stumbled across us on justin.tv, if you go to www.transportevolved.com/live, you can see us there too. It's all brilliant, really, isn't it, Mark?
It's wonderful.
Right, so let's talk about the news for the week. So, plug-in weekend last weekend, we had a show. We're not really going to kind of revisit this in any great detail, but Plug-in America said it was the biggest celebrations yet for plug-in cars. 40 to 50,000 people across the US took part in National Plug-in Day, or International Plug-in Day, as we've been calling it here on Transport Evolved. Ben, that's phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah, it was fantastic. I went out to Madison, Wisconsin, our state capital, for the Plug-in Day, and it was just a blast. We were fortunate enough to have some good weather, and we held our event in the parking lot of a large grocery store. And what was actually really great about that was there were just all the people out doing their regular grocery shopping, and we had a lot of vehicles there. I think we had 15 Nissan Leafs. We had a Tesla S. We had two different high motion plug-in Priuses. We had a Toyota plug-in Prius. Ford Focus Electric. We had a couple of electric scooters there made by a local startup company. It was a couple of engineering college students are making their own electric scooters, and I got to test ride those. It was absolutely a blast. We had a cake. The cake had a couple of our different plug-in vehicles on it. And the one friend said his favorite part of the entire event was eating his own car. So it was really fantastic. We had so many vehicles there, a lot of very excited people. And it was fun just to pop your hood and talk to people who are going out grocery shopping and just teach them a little bit more about clean transportation. So it was a great day.
It looks fantastic. These are some photos from Dennis in California, and you can see the number of cars taking part there. I mean, he's used a lovely panoramic shot there. Everything. What have we got in this photograph? We've got everything from a Chevy Spark. We've got an old Ford Ranger, Fisker Karma, Smart ED, Coda, Mitsubishi i-MiEV, Fiat 500, RAV4 EV, BMW Active E, Tesla Model S, Ford Focus, Nissan Leaf, Chevy Volt. Looks like we've got the whole lot there lined up, isn't it? It's like a who's who of cars. It's brilliant. Mark?
Yeah. Well, we need to do a proper meetup in this country for Plug-in Day next year.
Well,
we need to organise that. I think a Transport Evolved meetup.
Yes, we will. As long as people are willing to help us sort it out, we'll do it. The other thing to bear in mind is we were going to have one, but the event that we were due to go to got cancelled. And so, we're not and we weren't able to do it ourselves because getting stuff to a Transport Evolved, to do a live Transport Evolved show, and we've talked about this a lot. I want to do a live Transport Evolved show from somewhere in the UK or from the US, as long as someone can help me get over there. I will turn up, I will do a live version of the show on a stage with all the kit, but to do that requires a lot of planning and forethought. I don't have my roving camera with me today. It's in the other room. But just to give you an idea, when I'm doing this show on the internet, we've got 5 computers running. 4 monitors, 4 monitors plus a laptop, plus 2 laptops. We've got a mixing desk. We've got wires and cables going everywhere. We've got a couple of cameras, and that's just me. And every other person taking part also has their own kit. So to get all of that in a car or on a plane to a location, to unpack it, to then get it running is not a one-person job. And actually, I need an engineer to help me. So if someone's willing in the UK to help me set this all up, pack my studio up here, move it to a location, put it together and actually do an event live, fine. Otherwise, it has to stay here.
I was actually considering doing the show today from my garage because I shoot a lot of videos that are just working on projects in my garage. I got a little solar hooked up there. I got my electric motorcycle and car, all that. And a while back, I went to a rummage sale where a photographer was selling some backdrops that they're on rollers. They're automated. They roll down. Yeah. So I bought that. I hooked it up in my garage. So instead of seeing all this junk in the background, I could just roll that down, set up a camera and film myself. And the Wi-Fi will exactly not reach from my house to my garage for the laptop. Otherwise, I thought I could sit out there. I'd be in front of a nice photographic background, good and clean. And then whenever you're ready, I could just hit the button, roll it up. Then my motorcycle and electric car would be behind me.
That would be sweet.
Maybe we'll try that for next time.
We'll have to try that. The tech we have was just making it work in the right way. All right, so Plug-in America says Plug-in Day was a success. We concur, it was a great day. September sales, though, weren't as high as August sales. In fact, there was quite a massive drop, wasn't there, Mark? It was...
Yeah, it seemed like the two big stats that anyone tends to follow, and this is the ones that tend to get reported anyway, are the Leaf and the Volt sales, and they both sort of dropped by about a decent third, and it was I don't know why. I can only figure that. Well, my theory is that kids are back at school. You don't go visit car lots. In the summer, it's almost like a family trip out. At least it was when I was younger, to wander around a car lot and look at all the shiny cars. And that doesn't happen so much when the kids are back at school, is my thinking.
Well, the other thing to bear in mind is automakers release in America the next model year, around about August, September. So the 2014 models are now coming onto the market. And so if you want a 2013 really cheap, you go to the dealer in August because they just want to get rid of the 2013s. Production's already started on the 2014 Volts. Some of those Volts have now been delivered to customers. And so people go to the dealers. I mean, a couple of months back, dealers were knocking $5,000 off the 2012 and 2013 Volts just to move them. And I think, that is what helped in August. Good sales incentives, and also that price war. Do you remember that price war where lease plans were just dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping?
Yeah, I was actually just looking at leases for the Nissan Leaf. One thing that's kind of been keeping me from working on some projects as much as I'd like to lately was I was having some vehicle trouble with my daily driver. When the bumper and the exhaust system both fall off of a truck on the same day, it's probably time for something new. So I was taking a look at the possibility of leasing a Nissan Leaf. So I went to a bunch of different dealerships. We did talk about how many sales that there had been, and it sounded like previously sales were pretty good, but they were dropping off. And that's the other thing I asked about is, when's the next model year coming up? And a couple of the salespeople told me that for the mainstream cars, they always really know kind of exactly when that is. But for something like the Leaf, which is a little bit different from the other vehicles, it's a little bit less clear. So unfortunately, that leaves me as somebody who might buy or lease a vehicle kind of hanging there going, oh, when's the next one coming? But I did get an email from one of the salespeople saying that they were having a special just at the end of the month where they were doing a sign and drive, which basically took about $2,000 off the price of doing a lease. So, if you get at the right time, there's still some deals, but it's a little odd. You don't quite know exactly what's going on when with some of the electric cars compared to some of the more mainstream cars.
And here we haven't seen that much in the way of fire selling almost the Leaf or any of the other EVs. But EV sales in the UK are just tanking at the moment. Well, I don't think tanking's the right word. They're not taking off.
Yeah, they've never really taken off. It's quite sad, really, and I don't know why. Well, you say that just because you're the clever one. We seem more the British mentality seems to be a lot more reserved or a lot more cautious of anything that challenges what has been established, and it's actually quite bad because it holds us back in a lot of areas, I think, and I think it's holding us back in terms of these cars.
I think it's education. I mean, I wrote an article this week for Green Car Reports saying, why have incentives in the UK failed? And I put it down to three or four different things. Education of buyers and dealers. We've got dealers in the UK where you can walk in and say, I want to find out about that car in the window. And they go, well, we don't sell it. If you want to buy one, you've got to talk to our head office that's 300 miles away.
Yeah, it's a little awkward when I can go into a dealership and I know more about the car than the salesperson does.
Absolutely. And then we've got general public don't know because these cars aren't advertised on TV because diesel is so popular. Diesel is 50% market share in the UK and in Europe. And people for years, diesel has been portrayed as being a clean choice. So people go, yeah, but I can get a diesel that does 70 or 80 miles to the gallon for half the price of an EV. Why would I buy an EV? And it's getting over that mentality, which is completely false. I mean, we know this.
You just blew my mind because in the United States, we're almost the opposite of that. We have this mentality of diesels that's kind of being old school and dirty, or it's for the big trucks going over the road. Volkswagen is really the leader here in diesels, and they have a good reputation for good fuel economy. And we're starting to get some of the other European car companies with the diesels here. But if you said you can get 70 or 80 miles per gallon in a diesel, anybody here would swear you're lying because that's just not possible. You simply cannot do that. And I would absolutely love to see more clean diesels here with that kind of fuel economy. As it is right now, we just don't have it. And oh boy, I get a little jealous of European cars sometimes.
Well, the issue with diesel though is that it's clean if you're looking at it from a very restricted point of view of what is dirty. So it's cleaner in certain emissions if you ignore all of these horrible other things, and that's how
particulates and all of that.
Yeah, and that's how it's taken off. Is they've gone. Petrol cars generally admit this kind of horrible crud, and diesels don't. So they're much cleaner, and then they just leave it at that. They don't then go on to say, but you also then have all these other crud coming out the back, and. Yeah, and we also have that issue of the long tailpipe seems to be such a bigger argument here than it seems to be reading the US sites, is that people think they're being conned when we say this electric car has zero tailpipe emissions. They go, but where is that power coming from?
Yeah.
As if petrol magically appears at petrol pumps, but they don't think any further back than petrol pumps, and that's such a big problem.
The other thing we don't have in the UK that you have in abundance in the US is the urban sprawl scenario, because in the UK people are so keen to protect the green belt, so keen to protect the green and pleasant land that is the UK, that they really limit any kind of development outside of urban centres. Getting planning permission in the countryside to build a house, even if it's an eco-friendly one, is mind-blowingly difficult. We are researching building a house in Scotland after having decided that America's not safe for us to move to yet. We want to build a house in Scotland, an eco house, a log cabin. Finding a place to do that is nigh on impossible, because if you can't do it in any of the parks because it's protected, and you'd have to jump through so many hoops, you might as well not bother. And in other areas you have villagers posing a objections, which means that development of large collections of houses is happening in cities, but not anywhere else. And
it's that different thing as well. You can't be different.
Yeah, EVs in the Bay Area, for example. I've driven from San Francisco all the way down to Fremont, and then all the way out to Santa Cruz and back. You're not really in the countryside at all. You're in an urban sprawl. It's a good road network. It's freeway all the way. There's plenty of places to charge up. And it makes sense because you've got the HOV lanes, etc., etc. In the UK, I mean, people this week were complaining. My son is taking part in an opera at the moment, and he went to a rehearsal on Tuesday. It's 5 miles from my house. It took us, not even 5 miles, it took us 45 minutes to get from our house to 1.5 miles down the road. And then the last bit was easy. But because of the traffic, it's just people, we've got tiny roads, too many cars, and people go, well, what's the point? Because there's no HOV lanes. We don't have the access. It's stupid. Anyway, let's move on. Tesla and Samsung sitting in a tree. KISSING. Mark, you want to take this one?
Well, it's good, I think, in sense of
Tell us what the story is.
What? That I was going to. I was giving it a preamble to make people infused about what I was going to say. Anyway, Tesla and Samsung. Basically, there is a bit of courting, a bit of behind closed doors discussions in a good way, a bit of flirting between the two companies as to possibly setting up a supplier relationship between them, and Tesla essentially becoming Samsung becoming a battery supplier for Tesla. I hope that's the way around it is. Otherwise, I've read this story completely wrong, which is good. I think. I mean, I don't actually know where Tesla's getting their batteries from at the moment. I'm hoping that's
pretty
right.
much anyone who will sell them to them. The problem here seems
they're buying from all over the place. Yeah. They can't make bulk orders.
Well, the challenge here for Tesla is it just needs so many damn batteries, and it doesn't need the batteries that most car makers need. Most car makers need nice flat packs like Nissan, the nice big flat cells. Tesla is doing the little round cells that you find in consumer devices, and so Tesla needs to go out to the consumer market and go, we want to buy these battery cells. Samsung has said, Samsung SDI, which is a division of Samsung, says that they are starting to negotiate. Samsung said one source says that negotiations are 90% complete, and that the main roadblock has been Samsung SDI's insistence that Tesla also buy components such as touchscreens from its sister divisions. In other words, you want our batteries, you have to use our screens in your car.
That's not going to happen.
So Panasonic is Tesla's primary supplier at the moment, but Samsung wants in on the action. Of course, wonder what Panasonic's going to do about this as well. I don't know if they have exclusivity contracts. I can't.
I mean, we're talking about a massive contract. It doesn't make sense for Samsung to tack on additional conditions that are likely to make the thing not go through. Surely they should be glad that Tesla wants their batteries, because I mean, if it takes off, and it seems to be taking off for Tesla, they're going to be making bigger and bigger orders year upon year upon year. What's the point in tacking on extra conditions that is going to make Tesla go, well, maybe we don't want to deal with these people?
Yeah, maybe. Well, then again, they were in a powerful position. Right, Tesla Model S was the best-selling car in Norway for September. Not just the best-selling electric car, the best-selling car, period. Now, there are a couple of caveats here, okay? The first one is Tesla only went on sale in Norway, I think, in August. So all those people who had pre-ordered a Tesla got them in August or September. So that's the first reason why there were lots of them being sold. Second reason is Norway has obviously massive incentives for EVs, and you talk to most new car buyers, and for them, it's almost the inverse of what it is for most people here. For here, it's, why would you buy an electric car? Over there, it's, well, why would you buy a petrol or a diesel car? because you get so many incentives. You don't have to pay the purchase tax. You don't have to pay for parking in cities like Oslo. You can use the bus lanes. Blah 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 blah. You get free charging. It makes sense. But 616 Tesla Model S's sold during September is enough to give it the top spot, which is a 5.1% market share for Norway, which tells us that there are lots of other cars being sold. It's just obviously Tesla happened to sell more of its Model S than anything else.
And I mean, what sticks with me about this story is the Model S is a luxury car. It's a car, even in Norway, it's going to be a car that costs more than most other cars. So this is still the luxury market. The moment an affordable car comes out that's as desirable as the Model S, they're going to blow the competition out of the water.
Yeah.
Now, now, I think you just said it was about 600 of the Teslas that were sold in August?
Yeah.
Now, wasn't it in the United States last year, the Mitsubishi i-MiEV, wasn't it about 600 total for the entire year?
Yeah, in fact.
So in 1 month in Norway, they sold more Teslas than in the States last year that Mitsubishi sold.
And Mitsubishi only sold 10 in September in the US.
Yeah,
completely.
I saw that
We're going to
number
talk
too,
that.
and,
We're going to talk that. We'll come back to that story later,
I'm
actually,
sure
because we will. Because I know Ben's actually got a Mitsubishi. But it's time for an ad break. Let's go and see what happens when you're on a spaceship and something really freaky happens.
It was supposed to be just another cargo run, but for Ken Mallory and the 3-person crew of the Raven, an anomaly in deep space changes everything. An unexpected turbulence shakes the small ship like never before, allowing a deadly virus aboard. One by one, the infected crew is thrown back in time to relive a near-death experience. Only this time, death may be closer than they remember. My short story Chronovirus is available for Amazon Kindle, Barnes & Noble Nook, Kobo, iBooks, Sony, and for all other devices and e-readers through Smashwords. Learn more about Chronovirus by visiting my website at www.aaroncrocco.com.
I'm sorry, I'm just laughing at what Mark typed to me in the chat room. For those who don't know, we have a timer because we're really trying to keep these shows to an hour long. We have a timer, and I've got a recorder timer and a countdown timer, so I know exactly how long the show's got left. And I said to Mark, we're 5 minutes over. We need to, make that up. And he said he's going to talk faster. So
much faster.
We're now going to talk, Mark, about the Tesla fire this week.
Yes, because this is apparently an important story that we almost talk about all the time. Am I the only one that's getting slightly annoyed by this? I mean,
I am too. But our job is to comment on the news, so we have to cover it. I mean,
but is it news? I suppose is my argument.
Is.
I mean, when you get 17 car fires a day in the US. And there's been one electric car fire in the past however many months. Why is that suddenly a news story? That's what annoys me, is that it's picking on it because it is something special. It should be. The news story should be one Tesla Model S has caught fire. This is the first Tesla Model S that's ever caught fire in the history of the car.
In a very unusual way as well. I mean, it hit metal debris on the freeway in the HOV lane. It hit debris. It told the driver to pull off the road, which he did. He got to the bottom of the off-ramp, smelt burning, got out of the car bursts into flames. From the front of the vehicle, fire was contained to the battery pack. It was contained to the front of the battery pack. Tesla has special foam that expands when it heats up to stop the fire from spreading.
Actually causing firewalls.
This did what Tesla wanted it to do. And you can't build a car that, withstands all of everything, can you?
And the situation as well was it essentially went over a piece of metal which levered itself upwards, and the metal plate that they have on the bottom of the Model S to pierce it like it did, they're estimating it needed 25 US tons of pressure to do that, which is about 22 everywhere else tons of pressure.
Wow. So I mean, let's go. So let's talk.
I happen to like our US tons. Thank you very much.
Perfectly reasonable tons, but I have to understand there are other listeners.
So anyway, the car burst into flames. Someone put a video on YouTube of it, as this happens everywhere now. Anything happens, someone puts a video on YouTube. But the reason why I'm bringing this up really is to actually say well done to the media, because it was really well covered by most. I mean, Jalopnik came out and went, "Oh my god, it has the Model S in flames," but then Jalopnik is kind of like the slutty magazine that you read in the hairdressers that you would never buy, which is a gossip mag, and I never read a slutty magazine in the hairdressers. I hasten to add, I take my laptop and work. But my hairdressers hate me because they're standing there trying to chat to me and I'm just going, can't talk, typing a story. But
I've now just got images of your hair fluttering down onto the keyboard. You must, the filthy,
no, because I have
keyboard.
my hair coloured because I'm not a natural redhead.
Okay.
Well,
So
if I can just add a little quick story about safety here, when you design something, you have to design it for the case of, okay, what's the worst possible thing that can happen? Because it's eventually going to happen. And then when that horrible thing does happen, what does the vehicle do? Like I built my own electric motorcycle. I just took an old motorcycle and an engine didn't work, converted it to electric. It's great. It's fun to ride until I dropped it. I actually managed to crash my electric motorcycle and landed on my left ankle. Which was not fun. I broke it, the ankle, not the motorcycle. And it kind of took me a while to blog about what had happened. And I just felt terrible about the entire situation. And it took a while for somebody on a blog comment to point out the fact that, you know what, everything worked exactly correct on the motorcycle.
Yep.
All the power shut down. There wasn't any gasoline to leak all over and start on fire. There wasn't a hot exhaust pipe to burn you.
Yep.
And I thought, gosh, you know what? Basically, I just did the motorcycle back up, flipped it back on, and it worked fine. So it was designed for the worst case scenario. And I think the engineers of Tesla have done just a fantastic job with this vehicle. Kudos to them for doing such a good job.
the idea is, at the end of the day, if you have an accident in any type of vehicle or on a motorbike, and you can walk away, then the vehicle's done its job. You know, I was hit recently by a biker who came off on a corner, smashed into the front of our Chevy Volt. Our Volt wouldn't work. I mean, it worked. It took out both the tyres, took out the front, took out the charger, took out the front end. You know, I pick it up this week. Hopefully it's been fixed. But I walked away. I crashed into someone a year ago, and I wrote the vehicle off, but the vehicle, I was fine. You know, Tom Malogney had this crash where he hit something, the car crumpled, he walked away, he was fine. You can replace a car. But let's talk about how the media responded. I think they did a really good job. We said, Tesla fire, why we need some perspective. That was our angle, wasn't it, on Transport Evolve, Mark?
Yes.
New York Times, car fire, a test for high-flying Tesla. Very, very factual. ABC News, how does the Tesla Model S ace safety tests but catch on fire? ABC News, slightly more mainstream, maybe didn't quite understand the technology is the same. MIT Technology Review said what the Tesla battery fire means for electric vehicles. Again, very simply, vehicle fires are very common. One battery researcher Jeff Dahn of Dalhousie University pointed out that there was over 187,000 vehicle fires in the US states, in the US in 2011. So, you know.
I wonder if you compare this to the while back when there were all the stories about the Chevy Volt, the test Volt that was crashed and then flipped over and then left for 2 weeks. And then after 2 weeks, it started on fire. It was a huge fiasco. All of the stories were about, oh my goodness, a Volt starts on fire. And then later they're like, well, it was test, it was crashed, it was flipped upside down and left for 2 weeks. It's a little bit different how the media has been treating the Tesla story as compared to that prior Chevy Volt story.
Yeah, even the Motley Fool.
I mean, I suppose the difference between those two stories is that the Volt thing did highlight a potential safety issue in the car, which was that the coolant they were using could cause a short, whereas this isn't highlighting any potential issue unless someone happens to be sprinkling hinged pieces of metal along an interstate.
Well, I mean, look, every car has a weak spot, and I don't think, as you say, you can't build a car to make everything, you know, suddenly to make everything safe all the time. But yeah, the general.
These aren't military vehicles either. This is something you're supposed to just be out driving on the freeway, and exactly what happened was such a a bizarre coincidence exactly how it worked.
But I think Wired and Forbes have it right. Wired said, please calm the hell down about the Tesla fire. And Forbes said, yes, Teslas can catch fire, but keeping cool is in order. So let's move on to our next story. I think we've covered that more than enough. All right. This is an interesting one. By the way, before we leave the Tesla story, Elon Musk wrote a very good response on the Tesla Motors blog, didn't he, Mark? Which you actually covered this afternoon.
I did, yes, and we put a story up, or I put a story up on our site. But it's very interesting him going into how the car behaved and why it behaved in the way it did, and why it was brilliant the way it behaved, and all the extra safety things that they had, which essentially stopped it being much worse than it could have been, and how it could have been a lot worse if it was an internal combustion engine car.
I've been at Sweden's Volvo's Sweden headquarters, where they've got this massive crash test facility. You've probably seen it on Discovery Channel. It's this massive building where they've got this long tunnel with the winches to get the cars up to speed, and then they've got half of the room rotates on this massive roller, and so they can make any angle between two cars colliding. And I was talking to the engineers there about their crash tests, and I went, do you ever get disappointed about a crash test? And they went, no, we love it when things go wrong. Engineers love it when things go wrong, because then they go, wow, I didn't see that coming. How can I make it better? So whether you're a software engineer or a hardware engineer, generally the engineers that I know, they might get frustrated when things go wrong, but then they try, and their inquisitive minds kick in and they go, how does this work? Why does this work? Talking about inquisitive minds, did you know that the Nissan Leaf, the new Nissan Leaf, the 2013 Nissan Leaf, is only 15% American, Ben?
Yeah, I just heard about that, which I thought was interesting because, frankly, I was kind of excited, the whole, hey, made in America thing. We do have a lot of people, the economy is kind of a big deal. Where people are working or not is kind of a big deal. So it was exciting to see about the Leafs being made in the States. But yeah, I saw that and went, okay. But on the other hand, automobiles are really a global industry. Parts get made all over the world. And, even if they happen to be assembled in one particular place, those parts a lot of those are made somewhere else. So I guess I was a little disappointed to see that percent. But when you think about it, it's not unusual or unexpected at all either.
Well, John Volker over at Green Car Reports, who's often on the show, did a fantastic story. It's in the show notes, so do read it, in which he basically explains why it is only 15%. And he said, look, the first 2013 Leafs were only 15% made in the US. A lot of parts were shipped over from Japan. That's for a variety of reasons. Part of it is existing supply chain. Part of it is obviously not being able to find the parts over here. And part of it is the factory had just started making the things. But Nissan USA says the 2014 Leafs will be more American than the 2013, so more parts will be sourced and made in the US, which will be a good thing because it will reduce the carbon footprint of the vehicle in its manufacturing process, we hope. Ditto, hopefully, in the UK. I mean, I assume the same kind of content levels hold true for the UK. But as you say, Ben, nothing you buy these days is generally made in one particular country or another, unless you're buying fruit and veg that grew, in the field next to where the farmer is.
My backyard garden tomatoes, those are 100% grown in America. I get them 50 feet away in my backyard, but anything other than something like your backyard garden, everything's got to come from somewhere, and it's probably not necessarily very close to you.
Right, and there's a really good website actually that allows you to trace your food to figure out where your food comes from. And I'm a real advocate for slow food. I go down to my local butcher's on Gloucester Road in Bristol, and I will go out of my way to buy meat there for my family, because I can actually say to the butchers, where did this come from? And they go, oh yeah, it came from this guy, 20 miles out of town.
This guy just turned up with a cow over his shoulder, and we went, we'll have some of that.
Anyway, the interesting thing, though, about transportation and food is that they're very tightly related. There's a lot of what goes on in transportation. It really is trucking around food. So, if you've got a favorite food and it comes from, the other side of the world, I think that is kind of a big deal. Like bottled water, a great example. If you buy Fiji water that actually comes from Fiji, you're shipping this dead weight halfway around the world just so you can drink out of a square plastic bottle instead of getting some perfectly good water from the tap in your kitchen sink. So I think that definitely, buying local and going organic and having a garden, that's some of the best stuff you can do. I mean, driving a Prius or an electric car or something, that's good. It's going the right direction. Obviously, a bicycle's even better. And if you're not shipping food halfway around the world, that's a pretty darn good thing too.
Well, I have to say, walking also helps. I'm walking about 6 to 8 miles a day at the moment. And that's the reason why I've started to lose weight. And if you can actually, I looked at a video of me about 2 months ago, and my face was a different shape. Because, walking, I walk my kids to school. And my son said to me the other day, do you know what? I'm the slimmest kid in my class. Everyone else is overweight. And it's because they all get cars. And actually, I had a parent, I've got to tell you this, outside my school the other day, walking my daughter, because she goes to the junior school, my son goes to the high school. I was walking my daughter from the junior school, and I said, hurry up, we've got to pick up your brother at the high school. And one of the mums who knows me went, isn't he at name of school? I went, yeah, we're walking up there. She went, you're making your daughter walk to the next town? I went, yeah. We do it twice a day. And she's like, oh, but she's little. And I thought in the back of my head, yes. And she's not obese, like your daughter.
Well, that was cool. When I was in grade school, I walked to grade school every day. It was, down the road. It took a while to get there. But some of the schools in my area now, it's almost illegal to walk or bike. The school says that it's unsafe. And if your child doesn't take the bus, they want you to drop your child off in a car. They don't want them walking or biking, which is really sad. And it definitely says something about the state of transportation culture in our country here.
I was just going to say about this story, sorry to quickly go back to the 15% is how is it measured was a big thing that went through my brain. And I don't think John went into that in his report. Is that being measured by the number of parts or by the weight of the parts? How exactly is that 15% figure being
We will have to ask him. We will have to ask him because I don't know the answer.
Because, I mean, if it was the battery pack, and I think they've got a battery pack factory in America, and you're measuring by weight, that's already probably over 15%.
Yeah, true.
And I don't know. I just thought that was quite interesting. Or maybe it's number of man hours that are put into car.
All right, Europe Car quietly removes the electric car rentals from the UK fleet. This is a query that we had from a Twitter user at Atheists on Twitter, who asked us to help because they were trying to get a rental car through Europe Car in the UK, and no one seemed to know. So I'm going to read the Twitter stream. Anyone in the UK hired an electric car from Europe Car UK recently. Their website is useless and Heathrow says they're gone. And then Europe Car says, hi, selected electric vehicles are available for hire. Call our reservations team on phone number. And then already tried calling this morning. Spent £2, spent £2 to be on hold and tried nothing useful. Then Europe Car gets back and goes, hi, apologies for the incorrect advice. Purely electric vehicles are no longer available, only hybrids. This is after Atheist had called the centre to be told by the agents there that the cars had all gone. We've now we actually got a quote from Europe Car. Europe Car is committed to offering the widest range of vehicles possible to customers, including electric vehicles. However, it needs to balance the desire to offer new technologies with customer demand, and sadly to this date, the interest in hire of electric vehicles has been limited. For the moment, therefore, electric vehicles are not available on Europe's Car's fleet for UK customers to hire.
And it's bonkers as well because they only rented them at select locations, and those select locations tended to be places like London. In fact, I think they might have only been London in the UK. I'm not even sure
Glasgow,
if Birmingham got one.
in Scotland.
Okay, London. But they're locations where if I'm visiting there, I'm generally staying at a hotel in the city centre, and they've got really, really good public transport. I don't need a car. Whereas I in my previous job, I was trying to help someone find an electric car rental. They were going to visit some locations, and it was down the south coast. So they were driving from around about Brighton to somewhere else on the south coast. I can't remember. And I tried every car rental company between the two places, and none of them did electric cars. But that's where you want them. You don't want them in a city where there's public transport that you can already get around on, or everything's quite close together. You want them when you're out and about. And I suppose it comes back to that same idea that these cars keep getting marketed as city cars, whereas most people I know who have them don't live in the city.
I think this comes down to, frankly, a lack of education. Ben, I mean, have you encountered this problem where people went, oh yeah, people don't want this because I don't understand what it is, therefore I don't think anybody will want it?
Yeah, I guess I'd almost say it more culture than education. And actually, the comments we just heard here about using an electric car as not a city car, in my area, that would that'd be shocking. It's like, of course you'd want to use it in the city, because as soon as you get anywhere rural, it's these very large distances. There's no appropriate place to recharge. But like, for example, where I live, we just don't have any public transportation. I can't hop on a bus. There are no cabs. It's very much car culture. You have to have a car to get anywhere. But I think people very much have a mentality that electric cars are only for short range. And even though you can hop in a Nissan Leaf and go 100 miles, the typical American car use per day is 30 miles. So, you can go double, you can go triple the range of what you need the car, but people still do think of them as short range vehicles. I do think that the plug-in hybrids, I think we're going to see additional sales. I think plug-in hybrids are going to take off because they do kind of fit that mentality of you can have electric, but if you need to go further, don't worry about it. You still got the gasoline engine. So to that point, I think that the concept of the Chevy Volt was a good one, because I think it fits a certain mindset. And I've gotten to test drive a couple other vehicles, like the Ford Fusion plug-in hybrid, which I thought was a nice car, and I think it would actually suit a lot of people. So it doesn't really surprise me that rentals of an all-electric car would be low. It may be, it's frankly, it's a little challenging for the rental company. They do have to have it all make sense for them. And, maybe right there, that time, that place, I don't know if it is appropriate or not, but, I'm not over on that side of the ocean either, so I don't know exactly what the details of that are there.
It's just frustrating. I think I can understand why they're saying no, but it's, at the end of the day, it's horrible. Right, Kia has confirmed the Soul is going to be made in the US, in EV version of the Kia Soul, the 2014 Kia Soul. But this is the thing that worries me. It's select US markets. It's a compliance car. However, in the back of my head, I'm going to write a blog post. And I was thinking about this, about plug-in day. We keep harping on about compliance cars. We keep being mean about compliance cars. And actually, I don't think we should be. Think about the last generation of electric cars that came onto the market. The RAV4 EV, the original RAV4 EV, which some people would say original and best. I haven't driven the new one, so I can't say. But a lot of people very, very devoted to the original RAV4 EV. The Ford Ranger EV, the EV1, the Honda Plus. These are all cars which were first generation, what I would call first generation modern EVs, and they were all compliance cars. Their existence was purely to be compliance cars. Look what they did. Look how they changed people's opinions of plug-in vehicles. And I think, for people who own a compliance car, who happen to live in California, a compliance car can change your life forever. For those of us who live outside of California, we just sit there and moan because we don't get any of the fun. And I think that's the differentiation we need to make. I would like the Kia Soul to be sold elsewhere. There are indications that it's going to be sold in Europe because they've spotted some testing in Europe. But I think, a couple of sentences each from you guys.
Well, I was going to say the test in Europe could be anything. It could be just testing it in a slightly different climate. It could be testing a slightly different build. It doesn't necessarily mean it's coming here. I'd love to see it. And I'd love to see all the compliance cars sold everywhere.
Apparently, the Kia Soul EV is going to be sold mid-2014 in Holland, and only as an EV. Ben?
Wow.
What do you think?
I think it's a great little car. A while back, I took a look at one for a possible gasoline vehicle. I have to agree with you about the RAV4 electric. I drove one of the original ones. Fantastic vehicle. It was just great. I think the that the Kia Soul would be a similar vehicle to that. If we had one around here, I'd absolutely love to test one. I do feel that in the Midwest of the United States, we tend to get overlooked a bit. You know, these compliance vehicles, they're all out in California, they're in the Pacific Northwest, Florida, DC, places like that, and we're kind of the last to get anything like that. So whenever I get to see something new and try it out, I always love to. But yeah, you know, Kia Soul EV would be fantastic. I'd totally love to drive one of those. Just we have this horrible advertising here for that car with these giant hamsters to dance music. It's just terrible. But the car itself, I think, is a really good vehicle.
Well, it's an all new one for this year, completely redesigned from the ground up. So maybe it will be better. Interestingly, talking about advertising, I saw an advert for the e-tron, the A4 e-tron, this week, involving dancing bunnies all running out of power and then one carrying on because it's got a twin power source. And I thought, this is becoming so cliched. Can't we figure out another way of marketing plug-in hybrids to people and range extended electric cars? Anyway, let's talk about marketing people things. Let's talk about our Audible ad, Mark.
Haha, Audible. Audible is an amazing online service where you can sign up and you can pay a certain amount every month. And in exchange for that, you get the credit and you can spend that credit on audiobooks. And they have a bajillion and 7 audiobooks. They've added a few since I did this last time, and they cover this entire spectrum of books. They are there is fiction, there's non-fiction, there are autobiographies, there are old BBC sitcoms and shows that have made their way that used to be on radio onto there. You can download them onto selected devices like iPhones and Android devices and listen to your heart's content, and they are absolutely brilliant. And if you go to audiblepodcast.com/transport evolved and sign up through there, you would get 1 month for free, which is one audiobook, which you get to keep even if you decide not to go forward. And we get a little bit of money for sending you their way, which is good for us because we like money, basically. Yep. And we got a pick of the week this week, which is something I listened to about 4 months ago and something Nikki's just started listening to.
Yeah, I listened to it this morning. It's brilliant.
It's really, really good. It's called Bedlam by Christopher Brookmeyer. And it was actually suggested to me by a Leaf driver in the UK to listen to. And it's narrated by someone called Angus King. And it's absolutely brilliant. It's a tad Scottish in the sense there are a few swear words in it.
Yes. Let's listen, because there are a few swear words in this version. But I don't know, because in America and Britain, they have different swear words. So the first curse isn't really a curse here. It's just a slang term, really, isn't it, Mark?
Yeah.
But some people might be offended. So if you are easily offended, I'm sorry, you might want to skip this bit. Here we go.
Smelling corridor. So, Solderburn was taking the piss, but not in the way Ross had previously believed. This was the kind of prank that explained why the guy had ended up working here in Stirling, rather than winning a Nobel Prize. He must have slid some kind of false wall into place outside the scanning room. Ross walked forward, stepping lightly, because he suspected Soldeburn's practical joke had some way to go before it reached the payoff stage. He looked left and right along the passageway. All right. So maybe it was time to revise the practical joke hypothesis. There was a dead end to the left, where the way was blocked by 3 huge pipes that emerged from the ceiling and descended through a floor constructed of metal grills on top of concrete.
There you go. It's a really, really cool, book. I've only just started it, but I think it's brilliant. So you need to go there, www.audiblepodcast.com/transport evolved. Mitsubishi is not having a good time of it, Ben. You have a Mitsubishi i, don't you? A flood damaged one. Is it working yet?
No, it's not. It's been an interesting experience. There's a lot of Mitsubishis in the middle of Illinois, which is only a couple of hours from where I am. I've talked to a couple of people down there. There's quite a bit of them down there.
You mean it's normal to find them in Illinois? Ba-dum-tish.
Ba-dum-bump. Normal. Yes. The greatest town name ever. They're completely normal. There's a school there. It's called Normal School, of course. Certainly there's a lot of them down there. I've talked to some people down there. I said, hey, are there any used ones available? Are there ones somebody crashed into a telephone pole? Nope, nothing. There's kind of a cult following of the Mitsubishi Eyes, though. People who own them really like them. I was out in the Washington State a little while back, and I got to test drive one. It's a great little car. It's not fancy. It's not, cup holders and an entertainment system and everything, but it's a great little car. It's zippy. It's fun to drive, and it gets you around. Another fun little bit of trivia on that one is it has a traditional mechanical handbrake for the parking brake, and there's nothing stopping you from pulling that, pressing the accelerator and then releasing, and you can take off like a rocket on that thing.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I have not had any good leads on getting mine fixed up. And I think what's going to happen is I'm going to end up stripping it for parts and selling parts to the small but dedicated following that the car has. Maybe do some things like pull the J1772 off, use that for my truck project, some things along those lines.
Well, I've got a... Sorry, Mark.
I was just going to say, it's got a cool little trick that, quite literally, that makes it better at rapid charging than the Leaf, which is that it will cool the battery with the air conditioning. So you can rapid charge the iMove over and over and over again, far more than you could with a Nissan Leaf, because it cools the battery down with the air conditioning.
And in the wintertime, it warms up the interior of the car.
Those are
the
both
excess
fantastic things, unless the Atlantic Ocean goes in through the air conditioning vents, and in that case, it goes straight to the battery.
So, my best friend happens to be driving one up to somewhere around Oxford today, and all the way back, I got a text message from her going, "I made it with 6 miles to the rapid charger on the M4, which is uphill, pretty much all the way from where we live, right on top. They've got a rapid charger right on top of a hill. If you're going at it from one direction, you really desperately need a charge when you get to the top. If you're coming from the other way, sometimes you need and sometimes you don't. But she's got one. And of course, Chelsea's got one as well. Chelsea Sexton's got an iMove. But Mitsubishi only sold 10 of its Eyes last month. And now it's saying we're holding back on the launch of the Outlander plug-in hybrid until 2015 because we just don't have enough batteries to go around. So Mitsubishi had to halt its production because of the problems with contamination in the battery, because workers in the battery plant, as we've said before, seem to follow the 3-second rule for batteries, which was drop it on the floor. Oh, I just dropped it. 3 seconds. It's fine. Let's put it back in the production line.
Didn't work, surprisingly.
Didn't work. I think, though, Mitsubishi's in a big trouble. I don't think this car, by the time it arrives, we're going to have the Model X, we're going to have plenty of other cars on the market, and I think Mitsubishi's going to struggle like crazy to get any traction with that car. Mitsubishi is really a niche market brand anyway in the States, unless you happen to be a real Evo fan.
Yeah, well, especially with that car, the first time I got to go for a test drive, and actually it was just a test ride. I was just in the passenger seat, and it was one of the earlier versions. And to the driver, I commented, well, what about cup holders and an entertainment system and everything? And he said, oh, well, this is the early version. The American version will have a little bit more of that sort of thing. And it really never did. It was always very minimal. And, I looked at that car and thought, for me, be a great little car, great way to get around. I'd love it. But for, the typical American driver, we expect all these fancy stereo systems and just all this high-end stuff, things that can make a car more luxurious, but, they don't add to your range or getting around or anything. It just seemed like a very basic entry-level car that I didn't think was going to sell especially well here. And it was kind of like, well, best of luck to you, Mitsubishi. I just don't think it's going to fly. And looks like that's exactly what's happened.
Well, the problem here with the plug-in hybrid, the Outlander, is it is a different vehicle. It's a different market, as someone in the chat room pointed out. But at the same point, it's a market that is a really tough market to break into. And I'm wondering if it will have any sales. Oh, well, I guess we'll figure out. But this is the fun thing. A couple of months ago, 6 months ago, Mitsubishi broke the news that it had negotiated some deals with 4 municipalities in California. And I think it had managed to shift somewhere between 50 and 90 Mitsubishi iMoves. We found out how this week, thanks to Inside EVs. This is what they had to pay. Nothing down. The city council didn't have to pay anything to get the cars, and then they're given no payments for 2 years.
It's good.
So
I want to know how I get that lease.
So Mitsubishi, if you want to sell your cars, I think that's what
Don't
you
sell
need
them.
to do.
If you want to sell the cars, give them away.
All right. Ben, you've ridden a Zero S before, haven't you?
Yeah. Anytime I get a chance to go out on any of the various electric motorcycles, absolutely, they're fantastic. I got to ride a Bramo just recently, and they're all great vehicles. Love them.
Yep. And it's really nice to have another biker on the show because normally we don't have more than one biker on the show. It's good to have two. You're outnumbered,
I don't
Mark.
have a death wish.
No. All right. So I've ridden the 2013 Zero S, and it was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. 40 kilowatt electric motor. It accelerates, believe me. It will out-accelerate most 500cc sports bikes. Okay, once you're getting up to a litre, you haven't got a chance. But it will out-accelerate, your 250s, your commuter bikes. It's 250 weight, but it's got 500 performance, certainly up to 70. It will go up to 95, but it's a little less happy in that range, and it gets a bit squirrely because it's so light. I love it. I think it's a great bike, and I thought it was going to be brilliant for the UK market. But on October the 1st, no warning, no nothing. Zero sends a letter round to its dealers saying, we entered the UK market as early as 2009, but we're withdrawing from the market because we don't have enough support from the UK government. We don't have enough support. You can't get any incentives in the UK if you buy an electric motorbike. There's no tax breaks, no government grants, no nothing. And Zero's basically gone, the government doesn't support electric motorbikes. They're therefore very difficult for us to sell it because it's a 14,000 bike.
It's an expensive bike.
It's an expensive bike to then turn around and ask people to buy that when, even though it's got a 100-mile range, it's still an expensive bike. And most bikers will go, unless you're commuting out every day, most people won't spend that money on a bike. If you're a biker who bikes every day, you'll have your daily bike and then you might have a fun bike. And you might spend that on a fun bike, but only if you're a hardened biker. You won't spend that money on a commuter.
Yeah, and I mean, there is the argument of how much did they get support from the UK government, but I also wonder how much did they advertise? I mean, I'm not really in the biking community, so I don't know, but my dad is and my brother is, and they've never heard of Zero before.
I've got to stick the knife in, and I don't want to do it, but I've got to stick the knife in. It took me the best part of 2 years from the point of first riding the 2009 Zero, which was a horrible bike compared to the 2013. The original 2009 ZS was an okay bike. It wasn't great. The 2011 was pretty good. But from riding the 2011 onwards, I had to actually track the bike down at an event to have a little ride on it. It was that difficult. Normally, to get hold of a press vehicle is generally pretty good, but getting hold of press motorbikes, electric motorbikes, is a nightmare. So if anyone's watching and they want me to review their electric motorbikes, you need to actually send them to us.
Or you could ship one over to me.
Or ship one over to Ben.
You don't have to, I'm in the middle of the country, easy to get to. I did just test drive that Bramo recently, and that's
How did that perform?
That was fun. That was it was the day after the National Plug-in Day, and I know a guy who he's kind of an EV promoter, and he had done some work with the Bramo, so he had it to show off at the Plug-in Day at the same location. They were doing some Tesla S test drives, so it was pretty cool because on the Saturday I got to test drive a Model S, and then the next day I got to ride the Bramo Impulse. So it was really fun getting to drive these, higher end electric vehicles. And the Impulse was great. I did some riding at low speeds around lakes, up and down hills, curves, great fun. And then the second short test drive I did on it was big country roads, flat, straight, good weather. And it gets up to fast speeds really, really quick. Yep. I did not test the 105 mile an hour top speed, but I did go 80 miles an hour on it.
Yeah.
And the thing doesn't even have a windshield. So, at 80, it's, like that. But boy, anytime I looked at the speedometer, I was always going 15 or 20 miles an hour faster than I thought I was.
Yeah.
Just because the feel of the electric, it it doesn't strain the way that a gas engine does. All that noise, the muffler, blah, 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 all that. You just go.
So tell me about the gears,
fun.
because this is the only electric motorbike on the market to have gears.
Yeah, that was the thing that makes it a little bit different. I've ridden a number of different electric motorcycles, and they all ride basically like an automatic transmission. It's single speed gear reduction or something similar. That's how my motorcycle is. I just put in a motor and a sprocket, and it goes to the rear sprocket and a simple chain. So you twist the throttle and go, which is simple. It's easy, and it's still zippy and it's still fun. I did find that riding an electric motorcycle with a gearbox on it, at first it was a little bit like, this just kind of complicates it. It's one more thing to do. But, after just a few minutes, I got the hang of it. And then after that, it's like, well, now it's kind of like something more fun to play with. I can affect the acceleration based on what gear I'm in. Yeah, okay, this is kind of fun. It does add a bit of mechanical sound.
Yeah.
You get that clunk of shifting through the gears. The gearbox itself makes a certain amount of noise, so it is a little bit louder. Like some of the Zeros with the belt drive on them, extremely quiet motorcycles. The Bramo Impulse, it has a distinct sound to it, especially when you downshift and rev the electric motor really high, which I did that a couple of times too. But it was really just a lot of fun. Great styling to it, kind of aggressive. It's got passenger pegs, so you can take somebody else for a ride, which is kind of cool because most of the electric motorcycles, they don't. No passenger pegs, no passenger seat. So I thought that was kind of cool to see on there. And overall, it was a lot of fun. Great acceleration. Neat bike. Like we were talking about pricing with the Zero too, though. I had a lot of fun just test riding it. But yeah, you look at the price tag and you go, ooh, that's
halfway to a Leaf.
It's a little pricey.
It's halfway to a Leaf, and in fact, the Bramo Impulse is nearly 18,000, isn't it? At the top end.
Yep, it's a little pricey.
Anyway, let's move around to another pricey vehicle, Nissan Leaf. Drive you round the bend, literally. Mr. Gunn got behind the wheel this week of a self-driving Nissan Leaf at the Seatech Japan 2013 convention. I'm not going to play the video. It's in the show notes. But he said something very interesting, which was, of course, he was very complimentary about the vehicle, which is what you'd expect. But the interesting thing is, this car, a self-driving car from Nissan, will be on the market by the latest 2020 because he admitted that Nissan is feeling under a lot of pressure to be the first to market because Nissan was the first to go, we're going to build one. And now to bring it to market, I think Tesla's breathing down Nissan's neck. And Carlos Ghosn doesn't want to lose face. And so he has to bring this car to market soon. Is that what you would concur, Mark?
Yeah, I think especially with Tesla's announcements maybe 3 weeks ago where they said they wanted their 90% autonomous car in the next 3 years. I think suddenly Nissan have realized that this technology is actually within the reach of a lot of people and within the reach of relatively small research groups at universities and home creators.
Yep.
So I think they've suddenly realized that they've got to get this vehicle out
quickly.
Yeah, and it's good. I mean, that's exactly what we want. We want that pressure on them to make these leaps and bounds.
Moving on, Tesla been finally given a license for one store in Virginia. Now, for those of you who don't know, Tesla has had this ongoing battle with the dealer associations across the US. Most states, it is illegal for a car company to sell directly to consumers. They have to go through a franchise dealership. And where it has been okay, dealerships or dealership organizations have been basically lobbying like crazy to get states to pass laws to make it illegal. Virginia was one of these states that had a problem. But funnily enough, when Tesla turned around and went, okay, we're going to sue the state of Virginia, suddenly, miraculously, Virginia State, the Dealers Association, and Tesla managed to negotiate a deal for the license to be renewed for one store, which is Tyson's Corner in Fairfax County. I've been there, actually. I'm so gutted. For those of you who don't know, my in-laws used to live about 10 minutes drive from Tyson's Corner. It's one of the malls I know the best in the US. And they moved, I think, just after the store was put in. They retired and moved back to Missouri. So I have no excuse to go to Tyson's Corner anymore, but I was so looking forward to taking my father-in-law to Tyson's Corner. Not going to happen now. Never mind. But this is good news for Tesla. It's moving forward. It's getting people to actually listen and to move on. And I think this is how Tesla's going to do it. It's going to broker some deals so that it can sell at least from one store in a state. And in a state like Virginia, that probably works because Virginia's not all that big. And the people who, I don't want to stereotype people, but generally most of Virginia, I imagined, would not really care about a Model S. It's probably only going to be the northeastern fringes of Virginia anyway who want to buy a Model S. And if you live in DC or you live in, if you live in the District of Columbia, if you live in Maryland, you can probably get to that store if you have a Tesla. You can probably get there, or you would probably be okay to drive there, as long as you don't get stuck on the 495. So I think it's a good thing. Ben?
I think there's actually a neat little bit of electric car automotive history in this. It's kind of weird how you have these bizarre laws like, oh, you can't actually sell the thing you make. Go figure. But in the 1970s, there was a car called the City Car, which was this little two-seater lead acid plastic body car made in Florida. And they were sold all over the country, mostly nicer weather states, California, Arizona, Florida, places like that. But they were like the Subway sandwich shop of electric cars, because what they would do is there were these very small dealerships, like just one little spot in a strip mall, and they would have one car and they would park it right there so people could see it and test drive it. But it was its own car dealership. So Bob Smith would just set up his own car dealership and he would only sell the City Car brand, and he'd just have the one City Car, and when he sold it, he'd get another one to come in on a truck.
Wow.
But it was kind of neat. It was not quite a franchise, but a very simple way of selling cars. And unfortunately, the City Cars weren't around all that long, but in some ways they were kind of ahead of their time, including how they were sold. And Teslas, they're trying to do some different things nowadays that are ahead of their time as well. And how they sell is one of those.
We are so going to have to talk to you about that, because I know you know a lot about city cars, Ben. We're going to have to talk to you about that and write an article.
They're fun little cars.
Have to write an article on that. Fantastic. Well, this is the and finally story. 0 to 60. How does 2.15 seconds sound in an EV, gents?
Sounds insane.
Wait, say that number again?
2.15 seconds. 0 to 60.
I rode shotgun in a Tesla Roadster once, and what impressed the heck out of me is people always talk about these 0 to 60 times, but when I rode in one, it was in a 25 mile per hour zone, and I was in the passenger seat, and the driver accelerated from 0 to 25. And the thing is, it's instant. It's just one girly scream. That's exactly how long it takes. I was just blown away. But wow, it was just absolutely amazing. And then the other thing, we went out on the freeway, and going from 65 miles an hour to 85 miles an hour, it was that same sense of acceleration. Boy, 2.5 seconds, we don't need that. I mean, that'd be fun, but when I test drove the Model S, because the sales guy didn't say I couldn't, I literally did put the pedal to the metal just very, very briefly. And wow, it was the same type of acceleration that you get from skydiving. You just instant acceleration with no engine noise. And wow, it was kind of mind blowing. But at the same time, you simply do not need that in any kind of regular driving.
But
fun for the racetrack and
fantastic.
places like that, though.
These are students at the Delft University of Technology in Netherlands. 0 to 60 record for an electric car, according to Wired. But some of the folks in the chat room are now going, White Zombie can do it in 1.8, which I think actually it might be able to. So I need to just double check that. White Zombie.
Although I've never ridden in the White Zombie either, but all the videos that I saw, that's
insane.
Pretty cool. I do like that.
But I have to say, the Leaf, the European Leaf, and if you are an American Leaf driver, you don't have this, and I feel sorry for you. The European Leafs have a speed limiter, because I think it's now required by law, isn't it, Mark?
It might be one of our really bizarre bylaws or something like that.
I think certain...
Same reason we don't have the reversing noise.
Yeah, we don't have the reversing noise because it's illegal to make a noise in certain hours. And in fact, my car was delayed by 2 weeks, so some guys could get underneath it with a pair of tin snips or a pair of pliers and snip the beeper or remove it. I think it has actually now been removed from the back of the car.
And here it's the opposite. We get everybody saying, "Oh no, electric cars are too quiet. You're going to run over all the blind people."
Well, mine at the front
have killed a lot of blind
yes,
people.
The noisemaker still happens at the front. It just doesn't happen when you're reversing, which is a bit weird. Anyway, little rat run. On the Leaf in the UK, we also have kickdown simulation, which you guys don't have. So you can push the pedal down against a spring, which would be normal acceleration, and then you can push it past to get full power. So if you're in eco mode, you can go down to the resistance point and hold it there, and that gives you kind of probably 75% power. Yeah. And then you push it further and you get 100%. But in the Leaf in Europe, you have a speed limiter as well as cruise. So you can either have cruise control or speed limiter. So what you do if you're driving around town and you've got somebody being a complete and utter on your back, you put the speed limiter to 30 miles an hour. You come up to a set of lights, this guy's giving you all of this or whatever. You just floor it. And the car won't go above 30 unless you push against this spring on the accelerator, in which case it will break the speed limit. So you have to make sure when you floor it, you only floor it to the spring point and not past it. But you can floor it to the spring point and the car will accelerate like crazy to 30 and then just sat there and go, 30, we're at 30 now. It's brilliant. I love it.
Sounds like I got to get out to Europe and start test driving some cars.
Absolutely. Come over. We'll make you welcome. You have to come over to the, what's it called? The Wave Challenge we were talking about the other day. We're going to try and do that.
I've been to Glasgow once, and unfortunately my driving experience there was being in the passenger seat, which was the left, and the guy who'd never driven in the UK before. So he was just about sideswiping. Ooh, so I turned green, the color of the wall behind me when he was driving. And then I got to go to Vienna, Austria. I was invited out there last year summer for kind of a help design the car of the future think tank, which was a neat event. And it was kind of cool because I got picked up at the airport in I think it was a Volkswagen hatchback car, and it had a manual transmission, and the engine just turned off when you were at traffic lights. And I went, where's this in the States? Why don't we have this kind of stuff here?
It's brilliant.
So, it's fun seeing how things are different. And unfortunately, sometimes we don't have some of the technology here that the Europeans take for granted. So I'm kind of excited about some of the auto manufacturers here are starting to bring some of their European models over here. We're just now starting to see that. So it'll be exciting to see what comes.
My little 107 Peugeot 107 courtesy car, which I have to drive at the moment because we're waiting for the Volt to come back, doesn't have stop-start. And I've worked out all the local streets, all the local areas where I can turn the engine off and just coast. I know you're not supposed to do that. I didn't just say that on.
Very, very bad.
So,
bad,
anyway,
Nikki.
I've looked at the laws, and in my area, the laws don't say anything about turning your engine off. They just say that you have to maintain control of your vehicle.
Yeah.
And so, like, I've in a manual transmission pickup truck, I've experimented with just turning the engine off while you're driving. It works great. There's just a few things you have to keep in mind, like, power steering, power brakes work off the engine. But on the other hand, I've already figured all that stuff out from working on my electric car. So actually on my current pickup truck, I'm going to swap out for manual steering and do a few other things so that when I have that really running as a hybrid, it'll just drive and brake the same. Doesn't matter if the engine's on or not. So what? Doesn't matter.
Well,
Who
this
cares?
car's got electric power steering, so it's perfect as long as I keep the ignition on and the car out of gear while I've turned it off. Anyway, that really is it for today's show. Thanks ever so much to Ben Nelson for coming on. Ben, your show notes, in the show notes, there's links to your YouTube channel and Facebook and all sorts of other things, and your website, of course. So do say hi to Ben if you enjoyed him on the show. We certainly did. Come back soon, Ben. And send us more videos. We'd love to have you back on. That really is it for the show. You can find us next week at the usual time of 7 p.m. British summertime. Mark, you're here, aren't you, next week?
I am, yes, I believe so. I've got no plans not to be, unless you're kicking me off.
No.
Okay, then I'm here.
No, I should be back. I have to go and attend to some family matters the other side of the country, but I should be back, and we'll be tweeting and writing. And before we go, the new website is up, transportevolved.com. If you've not seen this yet, because you might not have seen the new website, this is the new Transport Evolved website. It's a brand new website, and we are now writing stories every day. Mark and I are working our little socks off. We've got guest posts. If you are an EV advocate, you work in the EV sphere and you'd like to write us a couple of guest posts, do let us know. We're accepting submissions. We can't pay anyone at the moment. But the other thing I wanted to draw your attention to is the little ad block. I know a lot of you guys have ad block on your computers to stop ads from showing, but we are running this effectively. Mark and I want to do this as to make some living for ourselves, to make a living. We don't want to earn millions of pounds, and I don't think we ever will. But if you've got ad block turned on your computer, can you please turn it off for our site? We are working eventually on making a paid subscription version, so you can actually pay a certain amount and we'll hide the ads for you. But if you don't, please consider every now and then clicking on one of those ads, or just watching them, or at least letting us show them to you, because it will help us make a little bit of money to keep the show running. The show costs are not small. At the moment, it's me and a couple of other people footing the bill, but we want to eventually make Transport Evolved a full network. We've got some great shows planned. We've even got a conversion show planned, talking about car tech and all sorts. So if you want to help us make this network bigger and better and more awesome, just turn your ad blocker off on those pages, please.
Yeah, it would really help.
Thank you very much, folks. That really is it. And until next time, don't forget to plug in. See you soon. Take care. Bye.
Bye.